Welcome to the Immigrant Take with Jess and Jem, your weekly rendition of being an immigrant here in Van City, looking at different perspectives of what it means to be a part of this beautiful community. Welcome to the Immigrant Take. It's so good to be back for another episode where we dive into important topics shaping our communities and the world we live in. We're here with Jess and Jem today, just having back and forth discussion on an important topic. But before we get started, how are you, Jess?
I am doing good considering what back to school, back to life is kind of starting in just 2 weeks. So I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I don't have quite the anxiety around going back to school yet, but I am looking into preschools and things like that. So yeah, something to look forward to, I guess. At least you'll have most of your days back, let's say, yeah?
I don't know about that. Some anxiety built up,
Yeah, so let's go ahead and dive in. Today, we're going to talk about a crucial subject that me and Jess have been hearing a lot about. I don't know, it's because we're doing the podcast and people are just, I don't know, they're just saying, I'd say sometimes awkward things around immigration around us. So we thought, hey, why not talk about these things we've been hearing today? So we know that Canada lately has had an influx of immigrants for various reasons. People are seeking asylum, people are looking for better opportunities, people are just wanting to join their family that's already here. We know that Canada is deeply entwined with immigrants from all around the world, which is shaping Canada into a mosaic, as people like to say, and a prosperous country as one of the only group of sevens with a high growth rate because of how many immigrants they're letting in. We know that they have a big plan between 2023 and 2025 to drive economic growth, resilience, and reuniting families to protect democratic rights and human rights, which are very key priorities for Canada moving forward, and allowing it to remain a leader in refugee resettlement. But not all Canadians feel great about the influx of immigrants, and not all people are excited about the immigration plan that Canada has. In a recent polling, 38% of respondents in that poll said that they feel immigration is having a negative impact on Canada. Although it's not the majority, it's still a large amount of people saying that immigration is having a negative impact on Canada. So today we just want to explore why immigration is not only necessary for the prosperity of Canada, but promotes a thriving society, and examine why some people may have these negative viewpoints around immigration, and discuss maybe some strategies on how we can help others see a different perspective when it comes to these negative viewpoints. So join us. Let's get started.
Before we go dive deeper into this conversation, I believe a lot of people should just really understand what immigration and why immigration is so important. Families that have immigrated from other countries or are second, third generations of immigrants understand that any developed nation, whether it be Canada or the United States, it's a land of opportunity. So with that in mind, nations understand the importance of diversity in the nation, and understanding where immigration plays a huge role in the labor force, in just strengthening the nation. So a lot of new immigrants coming into Canada, Canada has realized, or I believe Canada is realizing, the value that immigrants can have or do have in building up the nation, especially when it comes to including immigrants in their workforce and building up the economy. So I feel like a lot of people just need to really understand the value that immigrants have, although they have diverse backgrounds, but that's what enriches Canada and helps bring the talent pool and helps fill a lot of the gaps that the labor market is missing, while at the same time adding and contributing to the innovation and growth of the Canadian economy.
I totally agree. A lot of people also understand the baby boomers, the aging population, like they're aging and we're not really reproducing the way they reproduce. We're not out there having 8 to 10 kids, or even just 3 to 4 kids. Most families now are singular kids or 2 kids, and like that's enough. So that imbalance of the aging population and low birth rates is really a challenge to sustaining social programs. With immigration, with an influx of young migrants who are able to fill in the gaps in the labor shortages, who are able to fill in the gaps in paying towards like our social programs through our taxes and the like, it helps maintain that healthy balance between the working age population and those that are retiring, ensuring that our social services like stay afloat. Because if no one's working and no one's paying those taxes, then forget that CPP you're dreaming about when you turn 65 or whatever. So I feel like people also overlook the fact that like immigrants, once they're working, joined our economy, also add that value to help us keep our social programs that make Canada attractive to so many, because healthcare is available. That if you're down on your luck or if you're suffering with mental illness, there's social programs that are available through the government to help you deal with those times or with those issues that you may be having. So without that extra support that immigrants give, these programs could dwindle or possibly diminish while the government tries to cover up other areas that they might prioritize over these programs. So yeah, I feel like, that's another reason why people should try to have a positive outlook on immigrants coming into Canada, no matter what their situation might be.
Right. No, I completely agree. And I love the fact that you brought up the aging population, just because I just recently read an article about how 60% of the workforce, 60 to 80% of the workforce within the next 7 to 10 years is going to deplete quite significantly just because of the baby boomers that are going to be retiring.
Wow.
So in order for Canada to maintain, or I should say fill those gaps, and especially retain some of those skills and knowledge that all these baby boomers are going to be leaving with, Canada has to start pretty much recruiting and bringing in these laborers to make up for the difference, pretty much, right? So yes, it actually, to me, when we think about that, 60 to 80% of the current workforce, that's insane. That's a huge number that's going to be gone. Yeah, that's going to be gone. And
that's a lot. Like, yeah, a big piece of the pie, my friend.
Yes. So that's huge. And then also on top of that too, is I'm looking at it as a lot of times immigrants that do come in here, are taking a lot of the unpleasant jobs that naturalized or certain residents, in Canada aren't willing to take on, like say the cleaning industry, or the LPNs. Not to say that there's anything against those industries. It's just that those are more harder to fill just because of the intensity of the work itself, and then also the demand of what the job entails. A lot of those jobs are not being fully filled up by certain citizens. So Canada does need to bring in some of these immigrants, because a lot of times, I mean, I'm a descendant of immigrants as well, that we take on those quote unquote survival jobs, right? Just because we're new to a new city or a new country, and we just want to make life better for not just ourselves, but for our family and our generation, right? So, if it means working a cleaning job, or if it means, doing picking a recycling job or something that's not so pleasant, we'll take it, just because that means that our family's gonna eat and that we have a roof over our head, right? And a lot of times I know that a lot of new immigrants are not afraid of the down, hard, dirty jobs. So I think Canada is also looking into those as well, because as the aging popularity does age, there's going to be people that need to take care of immigrants coming in and being able to fill those jobs, and it's a win-win. So I think if Canada is to highlight that, the fact that there is going to be a significant loss in the workforce with the retirees, and then there's also just a lag in certain industries that are not able to fill continuously those roles. That should hopefully help a lot of families understand why immigration is at a high right now and why there's such a strong demand for it.
Exactly. And I think you said it so well with that. It's a win-win. Like those that are coming in are looking for better opportunities and are willing to do things that maybe those that have been here for quite some time are not. And the influx of having people who are able or agile enough to do the jobs that keep the economy running, like in construction, like you said, LPN in healthcare, and like childcare, having people who are willing to come in and fill those gaps. Like I think Canada has done a great thing by prioritizing the streams of immigration, making it like those specific job positions or skilled labor positions for people who are willing to do those things and want to do those things, even if it takes them having to go back and maybe get a small education, like for like healthcare or LPN or things like that, and they're able to do it. That only boosts not even just our economy, but even the diversity within our communities, because with the influx of people coming in to fill those positions, we also get their cultural heritage that enriches our cultural heritage. Like that's such a big strength in Canada. One thing that I've loved about growing up in Canada is all the different types of cultures that I've gotten to learn about, all the different holidays or traditions that I've got to learn about, all the different foods that I could never imagine if I had stayed in Uganda I would have ever tried, like for the likes of me, I know there's sushi in Uganda now, but for the likes of me, I definitely would not be an octopus in Uganda. I don't see myself doing that. Like going to the local market and being, let me get some octopus today. No, calamari is not the flavor, but like here, I'm able to walk down the street if I want calamari, if I want sushi, those things are readily available to me, and I'm able to eat them and celebrate them just as I would my matoke and binyebo or something else if I was back home. So I think that brings that unique culture and traditions that immigration brings, the unique perspectives we encounter, even in our differences, is not only enriching the country's social fabric, but is fostering a global outlook to make Canada feel safe and welcoming for everyone from any point of the earth that might want to find a place to belong or have that sense of belonging. So I feel like that's another importance of immigration, is that it's making a bigger global community where people can feel safe, people can feel heard, people can feel like they belong, which I feel is very important for anyone's mental health. Yeah. So like when we come back to talk about why people might feel negatively towards immigration, why they might be hesitant or unclear as to why is the government pushing this immigration thing so hard? Why can't it be like open arms, even when we can't? Like you saw, I don't know if you were watching the news, I think it was around March or February, where in Quebec and Toronto, it was just becoming like so many asylum seekers and we have nowhere to put them. But instead of closing the doors, we're finding ways to let them in, because again, we want Canada to be that safe place where you get the opportunity to plead your case and build a better life for you and your family in spite of the hardships, let's say. So I know a lot of people are concerned. One thing that I've heard often, even in these last couple of months, and that's why I feel like it's an important topic we discussed today, is like why immigration is important, is some individuals believe that the only reason immigrants are here is so that they're going to take our jobs away. They're going to put a strain on our social services. This free healthcare can only go so far. If we let in a gazillion people, what are the rest of us going to do, kind of thing, It's a harsh thing to think about, but people are actually thinking about it. People are actually saying these things like, I need a job. I need to be able to not wait 7 months for me to go see a doctor. I need to be able to find a family physician. But all these immigrants are getting in and it seems like they just get it boom, boom, bam if they want it. And I'm still here and I've been here for a long time and I can't get that job. I can't get that housing. I'm waitlisted for so long. So like, I can understand that fear, that uncertainty contributes to the negative emotions people might have about immigration,
You're absolutely right, because there's just that notion of that cultural apprehension that a lot of people fear immigrants are basically not integrating well. I run a business and I often hear a lot of clients request certain English speaking workers, and I can understand where they're coming from to a point whereby they want to be able to, hey, if you missed a spot, be able to approach that employee and say, hey, you've missed a spot, or can you go back and do this and that, right? So I can completely understand where some of my customers are concerned about the disconnect or the barrier. With oftentimes I find that I try to put myself in the minds of some of these immigrants coming into a completely new environment whereby it might be their first interaction speaking with somebody that's not of the same. I find that a lot of times it's not really that there is a barrier. There is that bit of, well, first of all, there's a shock, and they are in that mindset of like, oh my goodness, this is my first interaction with this person. So they either are shy or that they have lost their confidence, because a lot of times some developed countries, or underdeveloped countries, I mean, have this notion of certain superiority towards those that are of the Caucasian complexion, right? So a newcomer coming in here and then they're told to go work in an environment whereby they are surrounded by, say, Caucasian people, there is a bit of like shock, and then intimidation can lead to like loss of confidence for some of them. So sometimes when I do get a lot of clients that do request for English speaking employees, what I do tell them is that I personally vet each and every one of those employees. One, and I know for certain that they do speak English, because A, that's how we communicate, because I don't speak their dialect. So sometimes it just shocks me. It really shocks me when I hear some of those, because I'm thinking, well, I speak English with them and I would like to think that I have a strong command of the English language. That's not to say that they have that same experience with them. So I try to let them know that perhaps it's just that they're shy and that they're new, and that they're just trying to understand the ropes, because learning a new skill or developing a skill from one that you already know in a new environment can be a little bit intimidating. So I always try to encourage them to just go ahead and chat with them. If there's anything that they do understand, that they are able to communicate back. So I honestly just feel like sometimes it's just the fact that it's not that they are not versatile in the English language, but they just need that extra boost, because yes, patience as well, because you have to understand most times, like I can speak for my cultural background, is anytime you're talking to an elder, somebody that's older than you, it's almost a disrespect to be looking them straight in the eye, because it almost comes across as a combative move, right? So now that somebody's coming into this country and they haven't been assimilated into the culture, in most cases that I've heard of, many people come into the country, they don't get no life skills or cultural training as to what Canada is all about. When they cross immigration, they're given a pamphlet or a flyer that tells them, hey, these are the resources that Canada has for you. Go and do this. And it's followed by go to ICBC, get this, get your service card, get your SIN card, blah, 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 right? You can go to this center here, this center, and this center here. But sometimes there's a lot of fear around them. Like, these are people that sometimes they're not even supposed to say anything back. Like, if they have a fear, they're supposed to retain it within themselves, right? So now you're pushing them into, or they now, because they've landed in this country, they're told, okay, when you land, get a job, and then start living the Canadian dream, because you're now in a land of the free. And you tell them to now go ahead and work. And some of them, they don't even know how to ask questions. They're afraid to ask questions because maybe what they were told to is to never ask questions. So until they become comfortable and are free and understand the culture, it's kind of hard to just expect what you would expect somebody who's a naturalized Canadian, or say somebody that's lived in Canada for a very long time and understands the culture, is going to put out there. So I always try to let some of my clients that do make those kind of requests, I do try to let them know that, hey, these people are very much versed in the language. It's just that they're shy. So go ahead, feel free, chat them up and tell them what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong, because I actually appreciate that, because that is actually a form of development for them, right? And it's also a good way for them to start to understand the culture a little bit, that they are supposed to be vocal. Things that aren't right, they're supposed to know that aren't right, or things that are well, they're supposed to know that are well, right? So I appreciate that, and I always try to educate a lot of people around it, because it happens. It's almost like sometimes before you can learn to ride a bike or begin to run, you start off crawling. There's baby steps, right? So I want people to understand that that's the same thing with immigrants, right? They're baby steps. What was a norm for them in their home country is not the case here. And it's okay. And for them, sometimes expressing their feelings, they're told to suppress it. So everything is just like patience, and they'll get there. But it's not just going to be instant.
Exactly.
And we shouldn't be, as diverse country and nation, we shouldn't be so quick to dismiss them just because we perceive a barrier based on our first or second interactions with them, because that most likely is not the case. Some of these immigrants are the most talkative people that I've come across, and it's just the warmth that they have towards, and the respect too, right? Because for them, sometimes not saying anything is a sign of respect, and they don't mean that as disrespect or anything like that. And sometimes not because of lack of confidence, right? So there's just so many layers, and I feel like sometimes it's not our job to really peel the layers off, but it's our job to encourage them that, hey, you've reached a safe country. You're not going to be judged, right? So really putting that out there is huge. So yeah, that's kind of my little nugget on that.
No, I totally agree. Just to continue with that, is that we as immigrants don't get that, like you said, cultural training. It's so funny, when I went to visit my sister in Sweden, what Sweden does is that they have like for non-Swedes, right? So I always used to joke to my sisters, like, what are they teaching them that they don't teach Swedish people? But she explained to me, like when they come here, not only are they taught the language, but they're taught like some aspects of like how Swedish people behave so that they don't get offended. Like the immigrants don't get offended. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting, because like, we don't have that here. When we come, no one's taking us aside and saying, hey, so Canadians talk like this, or people who have lived in Canada think these things are funny and these things are offensive. Like, there's no special class for that. I know there's lots of great settlement agencies that try to do their best to help new immigrants assimilate. They teach you, like you said, the things that you should know about like your healthcare, about like driving in Canada, about like getting your kids into the right educational system. But no one's there telling you that if you saying sorry, like that's something that most people who have stayed in Canada for a long time can't help to do. Like, they always apologize first, even if they didn't really do anything wrong, or if it's not something you really have to say sorry for. It's just like the politeness within Canadian culture, I guess, to be open and welcoming to people. You kind of have that that thing in you to like be courteous and kind, you know? So some people don't expect to say sorry. I remember one time someone told me that I don't have to say please and thank you all the time. Like in their culture, it's not mandatory that you have to say please and thank you all the time, because as a they gave me the example as a parent doing something for your child anyway. So it's not something that requires a please or a thank you, because it's something that you have to do. So I guess I was saying please and thank you too much when I was visiting that family, but it's just in me to always say please, thank you, you know, like, you know, if you do something for me, I'm going to thank you. If I need something, I'm probably going to say please can you, or please may you. But it's not, it's okay to just ask for something sometimes, like pass me that water. Does it always need a please pass me that water? To me, yes, but to some other people, no, you know?
Yes. Right. I think it's just humanity.
At different perspectives, but we won't learn these things about each other if we don't have that place of meeting different people, let's say. So we want to encourage you, if you are or have been in Canada for a long time or are a citizen, and might be feeling that like, oh man, this immigration thing, Canada's going way overboard. This too much, too much. What about me? No, we want to encourage you to engage with new immigrants, to engage with newcomers, to see the value that they can add, not just economically, not just to help with the baby boomers, but like to make Canada a more vibrant place to be. Like this summer, I have seen so many different multicultural festivals that I was like, where did all these people come from? Like, it's so exciting. Every weekend, there's like 6 different festivals where we're celebrating the indigenous, we're celebrating the Africans, we're celebrating the Fijians, where I'm just like, all these. And the food, let me tell you, that's why I go. The food is amazing. And I'm like, but where would we have gotten all of this, if we didn't have the opportunity to have people immigrate to this great country? So if you're feeling like, oh man, I feel like it's too much, maybe get out there, maybe join a group where you can learn about the importance of immigration, learn how people are contributing, learn what people are living through or having to get away from, and find this place to be a safe place to be. Because even opening up your awareness around those perspectives can let you know, wow, what a privilege it is to be in Canada, first of all, but like what a great thing to be able to allow others to enjoy the privileges that we enjoy, right? So yeah, I've just been hearing so much negativity about like people immigrating to Canada and why are people coming. We wanted to just talk about why it's important to be so open and so welcoming and so safe for others to want to come and embrace this culture.
No, I'm so glad that you're actually bringing that up, because that's exactly how I feel. Like I get a lot of, just recently I was visiting a client, and one of her first statement was like, oh my goodness, can you imagine that Canada just allowed another, 1,800 in the province of X, Y, and Z? And I was like, that's a good thing, right? But I can understand her reservations, but I also know that it's also like, I'm always looking at it more on terms of how does this benefit the country, right? And it does. It really does. Like we've already kind of went over like the baby boomers and boosting of the economy, but it's just also enriching that human aspect of just being a human, understanding that there's more to this world than just what we see in our current surroundings. Some people are coming from war-stricken countries. Some people are escaping trafficking, human trafficking. Some people are just, they have no sense of where they're born, their identity. They're coming in here completely new. These are rich stories that, if, like you had said, once we get to know, get into immerse different cultures and get to know an understanding of different cultures, that just learning about other people, that enriches our lives. I mean, I'm one for it. I've always been, even in high school, I've always been one to never really stick with one group. I'm like a little bopper, this week you'll see me with this group. Next week you'll see me with another group, just because I find it so fascinating learning about so many different people and types of things. And to the point that, I was even voted next likely to become the next Oprah, right? Like, it's like, I just love people, and I just love the stories that people share, because I'm one of those people that I get so involved, and I'm like, wow, like you're coming from this, look at the resiliency in you. Like, look at like where you are. Like, I would never see this from you just looking at you. And sometimes some of these people are the most happiest, go-getters that I've seen ever. And I think what it all really boils down to, and that's something that I practice daily, is an attitude or a spirit of gratitude, right? most of these people are just grateful to be having maybe a second chance or a third chance in life, right? Then just the ability to just start over and make something of themselves that they can give back to maybe their community, maybe give back to their home country, or even just give back to Canada in general, right? So those are things that really move me. Like sometimes I'm just so fascinated by some of these stories that I just get so like I feel their emotions. I'm an empath 180%, right? So I feel their stories and it just gets inside of me. And it's like, how can I help? Like, how can I help make your experience here in Canada so much more than what you wish? And I wish that a lot of people would just kind of be on board with that. That way we can kind of build a community of just support and a community of just embrace, a community of growth, and just kind of debunk the negative association around immigration and the lack. It's also important to just kind of understand where all these, like some of these immigrants are coming from, because sometimes we forget that the journey that they had to overcome or partake in to be able to be in the bus with us or at work with us or just even walking around the park wasn't easy. Sometimes some of these people have gone through so many hurdles just to try to get to immigration and then have their visa denied. And this is like ample opportunities that they've had and it didn't work. And then by some grace, they were able to make their way here, which was a journey in of itself, really. We're talking about people that are coming from areas that perhaps their economy is not as strong as the Canadian economy. So for them to buy a ticket that for us, oh, it's just $1,000 ticket, whatever, money in, money out mindset that sometimes some of us have, that is a whole generation's income, right? So just seeing how they're able to overcome some of these challenges and hurdles and still arrive here and just be so grateful and so thankful. I feel like if at all as Canadians, we should just learn to appreciate and embrace them and then learn from whatever it is that they're able to help us achieve, whether in our job play, in our working environment, whether in our personal relationships, whether in our own personal development, right? So I feel like just immersing ourselves with different cultures somehow is not just going to grow the economy, but grow us as individuals and as humans.
100%. I totally agree. And so, yeah, not to labor the point, but today we just wanted to just touch base on why we're doing this podcast. This podcast, like Jess said, is to help build a community where we're embracing newcomers and hopefully supporting them to integrate into this fabulous country. We want to be that space where you can come, listen, be uplifted, be encouraged, be inspired, be motivated to get out and do and just feel like you belong. Because at the end of the day, like Jess said, is we're all human. Whether we're immigrants, whether we were naturalized, whether we were born in Canada, we're all humans. And simple thing of just being human, we should be able to be welcoming, kind, and accepting of one another, I believe. I feel like it's that ability to show the love you want to show to yourself, to others, is what promotes such a thriving society and community. And if we're all able to not only look at each other as humans, but even embrace the difference in our humanity, Canada is only going to be the best place to live in the world. Like, it's better than Disneyland, let me tell you.
So true.
That's just us. That's just our take, our personal view on why immigration is important, why it's necessary, and why we think it's just fabulous for us to live in a country that promotes immigration, even if it's for economic stability. That economic stability translates into the awareness of cultural and heritage differences that enrich us all, as a community and as individuals. This is Jess and Jem on the Immigrant Take. We'll catch you next week.